Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for our 2024 webinar during Construction Suicide Prevention Week. My name is Jeff Gamble, and I am the steering committee chair for this initiative. What started as a regional initiative in Kansas City in 2019 has grown to a nationwide effort to bring awareness to the epidemic of suicide in construction industry with the goal of saving lives. In 2023, more than 500 organizations representing nearly 300,000 workers across 47 states and territories participated in Construction Suicide Prevention Week. And we can now announce that we've exceeded those numbers this year. If you have not already, please be sure to register your company's participation on our website to receive your OSHA recognized certificate. www.constructionsuicideprevention.com. With approximately 7.5 million people employed in construction in the U.S. and far more worldwide, we still have more people who need access to tools that could save a life and reverse the trend that has placed construction as an industry as one of the highest rates of death by suicide. The Construction Suicide Prevention Week initiative provides free resources to people in and around the construction industry to help them start conversations, hold stand-down events, and share information with colleagues who may be struggling. Our goal is to put more tools in the hands of the people who build our communities, and this webinar is one of the resources we're proud to be able to provide. We want today to be interactive, so please feel free to submit questions through the chat or Q&A. Now let's get to today's program. Our moderator today is Angela Crawford. Angela Crawford is in the business of people and content. She builds relationships through better understanding what people and businesses need, and then successfully helps them reach their goals. A Kansas City area native with more than a decade of experience in strategic communication, currently serves as membership and marketing vice president for the Builders, a chapter of AGC, and as lead coordinator for the National Construction Suicide Prevention Week initiative. Crawford also served as a member of the Construction Working Minds Summit Steering Committee the 2 years it was here in Kansas City, and works collaboratively across the construction industry to find innovative ways to get more mental awareness support to the workers. Please welcome Angela.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the introduction. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. This is the second one in our two-part series this year in 2024. These webinars have been a great resource for people. We get quite a few views after as well, so this will be available. We'll send out the link to the recording of it, and we encourage you to share it with others in your industry and in your network to make sure that we are getting this information out. We wanted to host this webinar because this is a week of awareness. It is to put a spotlight on this issue, but the work doesn't stop at the end of this week. It needs to go on year round to really move the needle on this issue. So we've got three amazing professionals in this industry who are working towards mental health and wellness initiatives year round at their companies of varying sizes. And so we're going to talk about some best practices, tips, advice for how we can continue to bring these tools and resources to the people who build our communities throughout the year. So before we dive into that, I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves and talk about kind of how they ended up in this role and working on this particular initiative and issue. So Asma, we'll start with you.
Good morning, everyone. Angela and Jeff, thank you so much for inviting me and allowing me to be an ally and a continued advocate for such an important topic. Everybody, my name is Asma Bayunus. I am the EHS operations manager here at Jordan Foster Construction. I have been in this industry for about 10 years, but within Jordan Foster for about 7.5 years. And what truly brought me on board with mental health awareness was honestly the call to action that Sally Spencer, Cal Byers brought to the industry. Trisha Kager, our executive vice president of risk management, initially approached me and spoke to me about it. And what I want to emphasize is while I started the journey as someone who was an ally, as I've continued the process, I have found how important it also is for people who are advocates to also be educated on this, not only for giving the education to everyone else, but one day when they need it themselves.
Thank you so much. Kara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kara McCaffrey. I am Chief Wellness Officer at my family specialty construction company, Houck, which is based in Pennsylvania. I'm honored to be a part of the Construction Suicide Prevention Week Committee this year. I care a lot about mental health. I'm a certified mental health first aider, a Vital Cog instructor, and I rejoined my family company a year ago after spending a decade outside of construction after hearing about the stats. And that's kind of why we're all here together today. Construction is one of the top industries for suicide death. And learning about that really drove me back to my family company and wanting to continue on into the third generation. But I feel connected to this topic and just have been passionate about it for many years because I lost my brother Gary to suicide back in 2005. We were so close. He was 29, an amazing person. And I've lost others since then. So it's just something that really drives me, and both personally and professionally, to kind of live out in his honor to help other people.
Thank you, Kara. Josh?
Good morning, Angela. Thanks for hosting. Jeff, always good to see you, and panelists and everyone that's here. I'm really excited to share what information I can with you that are trying to learn how to help your companies create a robust program that's going to help people's mental health. So I'm a superintendent on a project in Chandler, Arizona for Hoffman Construction. We're on one of the larger construction projects in North America right now. So we have about 7,000 craft workers, and we're in the middle of participating in Construction Suicide Prevention Week. It's a daily thing, but for the last 2 years, we've really been heavily involved in creating a program called Tough Enough to Talk through Hoffman, which allowed us to build community centers on our job sites that focus on mental health year round. So, I'm here to, share any experience that I have in building that and my connection to suicide prevention. I lived with suicidal ideation for much of my life. So from the time I was a young child up until my mid 30s, I dealt with PTSD or CPTSD, and the suicidal ideation piece was something that I lived with for most of my life until I was able to reach out and get the help that I needed. And so a couple of years ago, we had a tragedy in our family. We had a second trimester miscarriage, my wife and I, and we were both really struggling. And I was able to use our mental health program, our mental wellness program, and our EAP program to get the help that we needed when we couldn't find anyone that would, even take us as a mental health professional from months out. We were able to get in and see people, and it saved our marriage. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that it saved our lives, probably. So that's why I'm here. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your stories too. I think it's important for people to understand our connections to the topic and the different ways that we are interacting with this topic too. So we do want this to be an interactive webinar, as Jeff mentioned at the beginning. So do feel free to contribute through the chat or the Q&A, whichever you're more comfortable with. Both should be open for people to add comments to, and we'll answer any questions or note comments throughout the webinar as they come in. But to get started, I want to get a sense of who all is on this webinar to help our panelists as well as we're talking about some of these things. So I am going to share a Slido. If you've never used Slido before, it's an interactive kind of polling tool. So there will be a QR code that you can scan. And I'll go ahead and get that shared now, make sure everyone can see it. Okay, so you should now see this QR code that you can scan to join the Slido. And if you can't scan the QR code, looks like there's some timings on this that I didn't mean to be there. If you can't scan the QR code, then you should be able to join by going to slido.com. Sorry, I apparently have some timings on these slides I wasn't aware of. Go to slido.com and enter that code to join the Slido. So I'll keep this going back here for a minute, make sure everyone can join. Yep, and then once you've joined, once it does advance to that next question, you should be able to answer that first demographic question. So give it one more opportunity before we go fully to this question. So. Okay, so now you should be able to see this question. Go ahead and respond. It'll show results live. I'm gonna have to go back and forth here. Apologies about the timings on these slides. And we can see at the top the number of people who are able to participate in the poll. So we'll give it a minute. I know we've got about double that on this. So I want to give people a chance to answer this question. So it looks like we've got a good mix between the types of companies that are joining us. A lot of commercial construction, heavy highway, a little bit of residential, which is great to see, as well as those who are serving the industry as well. So good mix here. Give it just a minute more and then we'll go on. Okay, so I'll let this question go ahead and respond to how large your organization is. This will help us just get a sense of, looks like we've got kind of that mid-size seems to be a sweet spot. No super giant organizations on here. But some variety in sizes, which is good. Give this just one more minute. Okay, so we are interested in knowing how your organization focuses on mental wellness. So respond to, and this is just kind of as best as you can describe for your organization, where you think your program currently is for mental wellness. So it looks like we've got quite a few who are kind of in the middle ground with their programs. Almost half would say they're kind of in that middle space of, okay, we've got something, we provide information. Not a lot on the excellent, not a lot on the no program at all, which is good. So that's great. Okay, well, this is a good baseline to work from. So we'll start here and dive into some of the questions that we have from our panel, knowing now kind of the mix of who's joined us on this webinar. So again, apologies about the slide timings, but I will see if I can get that worked out if we do with the last couple of poll questions on here before I share. So for now, let's go ahead and dive in on the questions that we have for our panelists. To start, I'm interested in just understanding what your organizations are doing to support mental wellness in the workplace. And Josh, since you started talking a little bit about the Tough Enough to Talk program that Hoffman has, I'm going to start with you and then we'll work our way through everyone else. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Thank you. So at Hoffman, we're a general contractor and we have a pretty lean operation. So our actual employees, we maybe have say 500 actual Hoffman employees. We have a lot of consultants, and then of course we support all of our subcontractors or trade partners on our project. So at Hoffman, if you're an employee, there's a robust mental wellness program. We have access to a very good EAP program through Mutual of Omaha. We have ongoing support via apps and a website that track, your well-being, and we're encouraged to do that. There's a big incentive for your insurance premiums every year if you actually complete the things that you need to complete through the wellness program. So it's very good. It's solid. It obviously we could improve, right? Getting engagement from all of the employees is a sticking point for us. But when it comes to being a general contractor, especially in the space, now we've got to think about all of the people that we really are responsible for, which is, 50,000 or so trade workers that are on our job sites across, multiple countries. We're in Israel, we're in Arizona, Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho. So we have projects that are going all over the place. And as a general contractor and a superintendent, right, we innately are looking to take care of our people. And Asma will talk about it. She's in risk management, right? That's one of our major thought points, right? It's front of mind all the time is how do we protect our people? How do we keep them safe? And I think what we've seen in the last few years is the shift to really understanding that mental well-being is as an important part of physical safety as the physical safety piece. So I think we're on the leading edge of that, and the Tough Enough to Talk program was born out of really a need, right? They say necessity is the mother of invention. We had 2 superintendents that died by suicide in a 2-year period that were Hoffman employees. And for a small organization like ours, it really rocked the organization. And one of our vice presidents, Dave Garsky, it was his brother, was one of the gentlemen that we lost. And so it spurred on the question of what is happening. Why are we not looking at this? And we partnered with CSPP out of Oregon, and they're a division of Lines for Life, which is the 988 operator there. Started to look at kind of the epidemic level of suicide in construction, and really, it opened all of our eyes to what was going on. So I joined a couple of years ago after I had gotten help through our EAP. I asked if I could volunteer, and we were starting the Tough Enough to Talk committee. We started asking the question, well, how do we do something about it? And what we realized is that we thought it would be nice to have a space on the job site where if you had a crisis or you needed to talk to someone away from the thousands of other people that are milling around, or hundreds of other people, or the racket, or just the danger of a job site, you could go be quiet. And so we realized that in construction, we couldn't call it a safe space because then people would freak out. We also, it didn't want to look like a shrink's office because, the folks that work on construction sites probably wouldn't like it if you had a therapist sitting there waiting for them to offload their information, right? So we thought about, how do you create a space that's going to work? And we did that by basically creating a bar environment without the alcohol. So we have pool tables, we have foosball tables, you got TV, video games, music, couches, a nice place to sit, so people can meet and just get a moment away, eat their lunch, whatever it is, just to quiet their mind, and do it in an intentional space that's designed with mental health resources available to them. So QR codes for their MAPs and EAPs are on the walls. The 988 hotline is plastered all over the place. And then we have a private room where you have Wi-Fi and telephone available, where you can close the doors, lock them, have a conversation with someone that when you're in crisis, or we can pull people in and do a suicide intervention if we need to. So those spaces, what we noticed is it actually changes the context on the job site. We place the trailer on our job site is right when everyone gets off the bus, and there's signage all over it that says, if you're stressed out, reach out. And what we've noticed in the last couple of years is that the conversations now at the whiteboards and at toolbox talks, and foremen talking to their crews every day, they're talking about mental well-being. They're checking in with each other. I have people that come to my whiteboard, and they're telling the other folks, I'm not having to beat the drum anymore, right? It's become part of the culture. And so that's been a shift that's been really heartwarming for me, is to see that it's not something that we have to jam down people's throats. The people in the field know this is an epidemic, and people that they know are dying every year. And so there's no lack of enthusiasm when it comes to people wanting to participate.
So something that we did get a question on in the chat that I'll just have each of you address, if you haven't already, as part of your answer, which is what was a key to success in getting the program started, getting the momentum behind that program. Yep, okay, got it taken care of live. So if you can make sure you're addressing that as part of your answers too. Josh, is there anything you wanted to add or expand on that you didn't get to address that question?
What was the question, Angela? I'm sorry.
What was the key to success in getting the program started and the momentum behind it?
I think executive buy-in. I think having the CEO and people in the executive office willing to take what the committee was saying and suggesting and implementing it company-wide right away. It was like we didn't have any barrier to implementation. Now, on all of the different job sites, the people that are running that specific project can take it and do what they want with it. But from a company standpoint, to have the Hoffman logo kind of behind everything that we were deciding was our best bet for the time, because we don't know what we're doing, right? This is first of its kind. We're just trying to do what we can and coming up with ideas together. So as we did that, we would send those out to folks and ask for feedback, and then try to improve as we got that feedback. But yeah, I'd say top to bottom is super important, because bottom to top is already going to be there. Like I said, the trade people already know it's an epidemic. So if you get those people at the top to buy in, then I think you're money ahead.
That's great. All right, well, let's go in reverse order from introductions. So Kara, we'll go to you next, and then we'll end with Asma.
Sure. All right. So thinking about what we've done to support mental wellness, I think a lot of it kind of starts with the culture of a company too. Like thinking back to my family company that started with my grandfather and my dad, we've always just had a culture of care. And, Josh talking about the support of the leadership, I think like the ownership as well too. Like if you have support from the top, you have this culture that people care about it. I think that really helps and can be a part of this. We recently at my family company also changed our core values to kind of align with that culture as well, and added in health as one of our core values to really show the importance of that and make sure that we're driving it into the culture even more. And, Josh had mentioned, I love the Tough to Talk program that you did. I think coming from my family company, we're, smaller, mid-size, we might, if you don't feel like you can do something big and amazing like that, which hopefully many of you want to try something like that, but there's other things that you can do as a smaller and mid-sized company like we've done. I know Josh mentioned about the great EAP. That's something as a baseline that every company should make sure that you have good benefits on, that you look at your benefits. That's something that we did and enhanced our EAP, got an app that people can use, made sure that we had access to virtual behavioral health care. So I think benefits is a baseline that folks should look at. And I think just communicating those benefits. Like for us, we had an EAP, but not everyone knew about it. So until you actually promote it, and Josh talked about that too, like having the signs out there and let people know about it, it's not going to be known about. So what we try to do is promote it in a lot of different ways. Sometimes people need multiple reminders or in different, avenues to get the information. So whether it be emails or texts or toolbox talks, or we have a healthy quarterly newsletter that we share information about. So trying to get that out there in multiple ways. And just since we started promoting our EAP, we saw the usage of it drive up by 6 times. So just talking about it more and communicating and making sure that people know what resources are out there to take care of their mental health proactively, or if in a crisis, I think can be really important. Something else as part of our strategy we've been trying to do is really focus on education and training, educating people on what mental health is and how you can take care of yourself, and also what you can do to support others. So we've been doing a program called Vital Cog training. It's something that I'm an instructor for, and there's a lot of different trainings out there, whether it be mental health first aid or QPR or Living Works. I'd suggest that people look at what different trainings are out there and try to educate your employees on it. Vital Cog is suicide prevention in the workplace, construction specific. And I've been training folks on that. My goal is to train it company wide, but so far I've trained the leadership team, which again, coming back to that importance of getting them behind it. I've trained our safety managers, superintendents, some other folks, and trying to really push that out. But I think educating people on it more and just talking about it more is a big part to that. And I think toolbox talks, and Josh mentioned that too. I mean, just sprinkling mental health related topics into when we think about physical safety. More people are dying by suicide than by all worker related, safety related, fatalities. So we need to think about our mental safety as we do with physical safety. So just this week for Construction Suicide Prevention Week, we did a toolbox talk on 988 to educate people on that great national resource and handed out hard hat stickers. And I love that I have the support of the safety team, and we try to integrate in mental health into safety. And we just do a lot of awareness initiatives, also with opioids and having Narcan on. So we just try to communicate and educate. And then we also try to think about not just mental health. When you think about wellness, so much impacts your mental health. So what can you do for someone's physical health? We have a gym reimbursement program, a discount code with a gym membership. We have free healthy snacks available in the break room. Like, physical health ties to our mental health. Social health, we have a committee that gets together and plans both wellness activities and social events, because that social connection and not feeling alone is really important when we think about suicide. So we do family events and appreciation events, trying to get people together. Next month, we're going to get together for a hike outside, to be out in nature and be together. And then also financial, I think, is something to think about when you think about education as well, because financial stress can impact your mental health. So we try to do education around financial wellness and 401k planning. So I think thinking about all areas of someone's health and just trying to educate employees is really what we've been trying to focus on.
Thank you. All right, Asma, I'll have you bring us home, talk about what your organization is doing.
Well, I will tell you, between Josh and Kara, they have covered everything that here at Jordan Foster Construction we really highly value. I will say that the executive team buy-in is extremely important. Having a champion in every area is also very, very vital. Here at Jordan Foster, our EHS department safety team members are all trained in through LivingWorks on how to be able to get somebody help, how to identify, how to look out, and how to get somebody help. As a Vital Cog instructor, this is something that we're implementing this year, where I am training our field safety leaders here at Jordan Foster Construction. Training opportunities is an incredible way of tying in mental health awareness. We have our deliverables. Between Josh and Kara, they were talking about how to deliver the information. We have our traditional, which is our toolbox talks and having the executives send out newsletters. Here at Jordan Foster, we have the safety bites. It's a 1 to 5 minute microbursts of information. It is predominantly on safety care, but we have also incorporated the psychological safety aspect of it. And we send out these videos. One has been released this week, which also talks about not only mental health awareness, but what Kara was talking about, which is your physical wellness as well. It is really important to also understand that while they're traditional things, with the employee assistance program, having our EHS safety members, as well as other team members who want to be trained in this, but it's also important to look at creating trainings that you can actually provide that actually will open up a gateway with mental health support. Here at Jordan Foster, after something personal that I went through, after losing my father 2 years ago, and the family having to administer CPR, there was quite a deep emotional impact that we all went through in that process. And due to that, I created the Mindsaver program. The Mindsaver program is the first of its kind in construction, where along with CPR training, we give all our team members training on the psychological impact of what one can go through when they actually administer CPR. And my point in saying that is that mental health awareness has many different avenues where we can approach it and we can attack it, and we can make sure to get out the information and be supportive while we're all on this journey together.
Thank you. And a great baseline to start from for what you all are currently doing. I know we've got a couple of questions, one of which is looking for some specifics based on the size, which we'll definitely get into. The first question, though, kind of leads right into our next question for the panel, which is how you've seen the industry evolve over time when it comes to mental wellness. And the question that we got that I'll have you respond to more specifically with that evolution is how the pandemic played a role in the culture around mental health and overall health in construction specifically. So Kara, I know you just recently came back to your company, made some big life changes in terms of your career. Let's start with you on this one, and then we'll hear from others as well, and how they think this topic has evolved over time in our industry.
Sure. So yeah, thinking back, like I grew up in the construction industry as a kid, and then I worked officially in construction. I guess it was in 2007 to 2011 timeframe before I got out of construction. And I, looking back, don't remember it ever being a topic of conversation, over a decade ago when I was in construction. I remember my dad caring about talking to people if they were struggling and stressed out, but I don't remember really communication about mental health. I don't remember, national organizations existing that were really pushing information like Construction Suicide Prevention Week. It wasn't really a topic of conversation. But fast forward to me rejoining, last year in 2023, I remember when I made the decision to switch and move from healthcare IT back to construction, I was like, is anyone going to care about this besides me? Like, it was like, am I going to be the only one? And how am I going to climb this mountain? And it was kind of daunting. And then I quickly realized that there are a lot of people in this industry who care a lot about this. There are a lot of organizations who care about this. And it's not just me. There's so many people out there doing great things. And I really do think that the narrative has shifted, and people talk more about it. There's more resources out there. And of course, we still have more work to do. But I really feel excited and hopeful that I was able to see that change from how it was before and to now. And I wasn't there in construction during the COVID pandemic, so I can't really speak specifically, but I just know generally that that did impact people's mental health. And there was a study done in Canada, I believe it was, on construction workers specifically coming out of the pandemic, where it said 83% of construction workers were struggling with some type of mental health issue after the pandemic. So typically when you think about stats, NAMI says 1 in 5 people struggle with a mental illness, but that study from Canada from COVID said 83% of construction workers did. So that's all that I have to add for that, since I wasn't really around. But it's exciting to see the change.
For sure, yeah, and we'll let Josh and Asma chime in on kind of what they saw during the course of the pandemic as well. Josh, you want to go first? And
Sure. So as the pandemic kind of started, I was running transmission and distribution for Intermountain Electric out of Wyoming, and then moved to the job site that I'm on now with Hoffman, kind of mid-pandemic, and it was really weird. So as a lineman, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and it wasn't a big deal. We were like, okay, guys, just if you get sick, make sure you don't show up, and a lot of my guys that were working were in Wyoming, so they didn't really have masks mandates. It was very, very lax, right? You got a lot of space out there, so they weren't too worried about it. But then coming to the city and having thousands of plexiglass panels in the lunch tent where people are trying to work, everyone's filled with fear, right? Like, are we putting our lives in danger by even being here today and supporting our families? Are we going to be able to work? Are they going to shut the job down? They put plexiglass panels in golf carts between the seats. I mean, it was a weird Twilight Zone kind of environment, right? Where we had never experienced that. And I don't think we've really even seen statistics that accurately reflect the damage that was done to people's mental well-being during that time, because it was such a shift away from connectedness and to separateness. And that one detail right there is the difference between someone taking their own life and not, is that feeling of separateness, right? So that's what we're trying to combat in mental health wellness and when in suicide prevention. What we're really trying to do is to get people to realize that they're not alone, that someone has been through it as well, and to share that and create that connection. So the damage that was done by the pandemic and the way that we handled it, and not to say that anyone did a bad job, right? Everyone was doing the best they could with the information that they had. But effectively what we did was we metastasized a cancer that already existed. And so now when we talk about education and awareness, for me, that's great. But you can't treat stage 4 cancer with awareness, right? It doesn't work. We have to get in there and do really, really hard work and do some painful things as companies, as leaders, as individuals, right? Like my panelists were talking about self-care. Get in there and start understanding that if you want to change the bubble around you, change yourself. You know what I mean? Start a meditation practice, get into prayer, get spiritual, figure out what it is that makes you tick, find a purpose in what you're doing, and handle your physical well-being as well, and start to do that. And then we can affect our personal bubbles. And then as leadership in companies, what we have to do is really take a hard look at what we're doing. You know, like with the EAP programs, I read that 98% of CEOs know they have one and 2% of workers. So how are we getting that information to the people that actually need it? You know, are we just checking a box? Do we participate in Construction Suicide Prevention Week because it's good for marketing, or do we do it because we care about people and we're going to spend the next 11 and a half months actually caring about suicide prevention, right? So, you know, I think that's the big question that I would ask for anyone that's on this webinar and anybody that sees it later is, what are you doing now to take care of yourself? And then what are you going to do to really do this year round? Because this is something that has to come from your core, and it will. If you look into yourself, you'll see that there is a part of you, that compassionate part of you, that wants to do this work and has to do this work if we're going to, you know, survive.
Thank you, Josh. And Asma, I'm going to have you address one of the questions as part of your response about kind of the evolution of this topic. One of the questions is asking what the leading factors are for why our industry experiences higher rates of suicide and needs so much more attention on mental well-being.
While there's no constructive science, obviously, on what would have somebody go into a situation where they may start thinking about putting themselves through this or making a catastrophic decision, there are obviously very strong risk factors here in construction. The job insecurity when it comes to, I mean, we talked about COVID right now. That was one of the most insecure times that I think the entire world was going through. It was a completely restructuring of how we did business, especially our business, because we were in the business of working together with people every single day and those parameters. One of the biggest reasons why in construction is, I believe the long hours. I believe the immense shifting and pressures day to day. Hourly workers, you know, for them, if you have a rain day, you may not get paid. There is a lack of a guaranteed 40-hour work week in this industry. Kara and Josh have talked about the importance of healthcare, the importance of providing extra support to people within our companies and within this industry. And quite honestly, a big part of it is the stigma. You know, 20 years ago, this was something that was brought to light, and we are still just at the tip of having these conversations. I mean, I understand COVID did push this forward. All of a sudden, as someone who worked in the EHS department, seeing my team members who were the safety professionals in the field, they had to hear and they had to actually talk to everybody about, are you safe? Are you well enough to come in? Everything that we had to go through, the protocols, the safety measures, everything was not only to keep everyone safe on a project job site, but was also to keep themselves safe. So that whole psychological safety became a huge part of it. Quite honestly, COVID did push all of this forward, but it is the fact that there is still an immense stigma around this conversation that does hold us back. And while we are doing an incredible job, and while we have moved in great ways, we've moved forward, just the fact that we have so many people who have tuned in today to actually watch us and have this conversation is very telling. But at the same time, the job insecurity, the lack of conversation, I do believe is a huge part of the reason why there is still a lot of stigma surrounding this.
Thank you. So we've got a couple of questions that are starting to get into the specifics of how do these folks who are joining us on this webinar, how do they do this within their own companies? And we are already nearing the end of our time, so we're going to make sure we get to that. So before we dive in to hearing from our panelists with recommendations, advice, best practices for how you might get started at your own organization, I want to hear from all of you first about what the barriers are that you're experiencing and what's working well if you're doing something. So I'm going to go back to the Slido. We believe we have fixed it, so the timings are not going to disrupt us. So I'm going to start back with the slide to join in case anyone needs to refresh their join. The more of you who are participating, the better our data will be. So please take a moment, either go to slido.com and enter that code, or just scan that QR code with your phone, whichever is easiest for you, and panelists, feel free to join if you'd like. Anyone can participate. Okay. Hopefully you've all had a chance to join now without the slide changing on you all of a sudden. So we'll go through, it's going to first show the slides that we looked at before, which is just the demographics. If you want to add, if you didn't get a chance to before, feel free, but just kind of showing where our audience is. Looks like we do have a few more people participating, which is great. So we've got a lot of commercial construction, heavy highway, about over 75% of attendees are in those areas. Okay, and then we'll go on to the employee count, just how large the organizations are who have joined us today. And we've got a lot of the mid-size, small and mid-size. So I know we wanted to address some specifics for small companies, especially who may not have the kind of funding or resources available to them that larger companies do. Okay, so we've got a few more people there, and then just getting a sense of where your organization currently stands when it comes to your mental wellness programs. When we were on this one before, it kind of seemed like most people were somewhere in the middle. They've got something, they provide information about it, but they feel like maybe they could be doing more. But no one really on the extremes. A couple people on the extremes. Okay. So we'll now go on to the questions to just hear from all of you. What is the biggest barrier that you all experience at your organizations in getting mental wellness initiatives out to everyone? And this is open-ended. You can type multiple responses, anything that your organization is challenged with, whether that's funding or access to your workers. There you go. C-suite buy-in. Already getting some good things here. And this will be a word cloud. So it'll kind of show if there's anything that's rising to the top. That'll start to show up in this word cloud. Seeing funding. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of money related words coming through. It looks like there's also a lot of responses around getting buy-in from management, which we'll definitely address. So this is really helpful for our panelists to see as well. Okay, language barriers, participation, access, so either geography or just getting out to the workforce that's dispersed. Give just a minute more to hear from folks. And yeah, it looks like I'm seeing various versions of the word stigma and stigmatized as well. So that'll be another one that I'd love to hear from our panelists, kind of how they've addressed that. So it looks like we've got a couple people typing, so we'll give this just about 30 more seconds to let folks get their responses in, and then we'll move on to the next slide. Okay. A lot of themes there. Okay, so what is working well? What, and this can be as creative as you'd like it to be, but what does work? What has been most successful for you to get anything started, anything in front of your employees related to mental health and well-being? Ooh, lunch and learns, that's good. Seeing a lot of toolbox talks, so that's good to know. Lots of EAP. That's great to hear folks have that. And you can enter more than one answer. This will also start to summarize if it's seeing trends. You'll see those trends summarized at the top. So we're seeing EAP and toolbox talks trending here. I'm also seeing a number of responses related to buy-in from leadership, which I also saw was one of the big barriers. So we'll definitely talk about that. More toolbox talks, it looks like kind of using posters, hard hat stickers, things around the job site. helpline. That's great. Getting some really good responses here. And we can also share the summary of these responses too out to everyone after the fact. All right, we've got one person typing. We'll give just 30 more seconds here, but feel free to continue to note anything that you know comes to mind either in the chat, or I think this may leave this open so you can continue to respond after I exit. But seeing definitely some trends there. All right, well, let's hear from our panelists. So the questions that we got, that if you want to kind of talk about your advice, recommendations for how folks can start implementing programs within their organizations. But the questions we had, one was ideas for small contractors, particularly those who can't offer health benefits or an EAP, financial wellness programs. And then someone else also asked about grants or funding outside of your own company funds that people might be able to tap into to help. So I know funding was mentioned. That was a high trending topic for a barrier, as well as that C-suite buy-in. So anything that you all might be able to speak to for those smaller contractors, I'll have you address that as we go around. So why don't we start? I know, Carrie, you've got some experience with your family company being a much smaller family company and having grown to where it is now. So we'll start with you on some of these, and then Josh and Asma, I'll have you guys chime in as well.
Sure. Yeah, it was clear in that word cloud, that funding came up a lot. And I recognize with smaller companies that just the resources, both time, finances, staff, that you might not have, people to do that. I couldn't do it alone. I have a group of people. So I think one suggestion is get other people who care about it. It doesn't have to just be you, but if you are a really small contractor and there's not a group of people who care about it, to try to institute some ideas, really look at what's out there already. There are so many different free resources out there. So you don't need to have additional money to use them. With Construction Suicide Prevention Week, we have almost 10 toolbox talks that are in English and Spanish, and anyone can use them. And just using those toolbox talks and trying to implement it into your safety program, you're probably already talking about safety, physical safety. Just try to educate people in that it's a simple thing to do. Just educate them on mental health related topics and use those resources. There's other groups out there like Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention that has other free resources too, like Toolbox Talks, mental health screening, Living Works training, Construction Working Minds. There's a lot of organizations out there that will provide free resources to you. So I think my biggest suggestion is to look for those free resources. And sometimes local trade organizations will provide free training for you as well, whether it be mental health first aid or offering Narcan for your organization. So I think try to look outside of your own organization and see what free resources are out there for you to use can be the most helpful.
Thank you. Who would like to jump in next? I'll leave that one open. Okay, Josh.
Okay. Yeah, Kara, great points, right? I think that, really at a small company, the best thing that you can do is create a positive culture. So,
Yeah.
and it's easier, I believe. So what you have to do is educate yourself. You can educate yourself while simultaneously educating your people. You don't have to come in knowing everything. You don't have to be an expert in suicide prevention or mental health to make a positive impact on the people that you're leading, right? So like Kara was saying, the free resources are there. Take 20 minutes, commit to one toolbox talk a month being about mental health, or one toolbox talk a week about it. And your folks they're gonna learn what they need to learn. And then you can take care of each other on a one-to-one basis, right? Creating conversations, throwing a company picnic and making sure that you invite families, allowing there to be an environment where people feel safe. We talk about psychological safety, and that happens from the foreman to the crew. So they're like the staff sergeants in the military. They make sure that everything is getting done, and how they deal with the people that are doing the work. If they do that in a positive way and they're fostering an environment where communication is respected, right? And that people can be who they are and show up as they are and have that respect and appreciation, you're creating a culture that's going to underpin the mental wellness of everyone that you work for. So if you're a leader and you don't have a dollar, you can do that by being positive, giving somebody a smile, and demanding that of your people that you're paying to be in leadership.
Thank you. Asma?
To kind of wrap up with Kara and Josh, everything that they said, I absolutely support. There is an arsenal of information out there, all the organizations that Kara mentioned and all the opportunities within your company that Josh mentioned. I mean, culture, communication, and having champions. I cannot strongly emphasize the importance of having champions within your organization. It genuinely does take a village for all of us to communicate, collaborate, and also emphasize the importance of something like this. And start off small, know your audience. Knowing your company is extremely important. Communication, I cannot strongly emphasize this. Having all the resources is great. And Toolbox Talks is an excellent way of having these conversations. But having leadership buy-in and having that leadership actually deliver that buy-in, it's very important from an executive level, from an operations level, from a project team level, that the entire language and all the communication and support remains the same all the way down to our craft worker level. These are the people that need the communication, need the genuinity from the support of the organizations and companies that they work in. And at the same time, it's always important to remember, cultivate your mental health awareness program according to the needs of the people that you are supporting within your company. Like I said before, there are many different avenues in how we can approach this and how we can address this. Safety and its trainings are a very important way. At the same time, we also need to remember we're planting seeds. We are planting seeds of awareness. And it is at many times an uphill battle, considering the industry that we're in and the fact that there is still a lot of stigma around the conversation. But having the ability of delivering a message which is uniform within a company, having the culture that is very supportive of mental health awareness and suicide prevention is a huge step and a huge seed that if you plant right away, it is a huge step in the right direction.
Thank you. And we're coming into the last few minutes here, so I want to make sure that we've had a chance to address any questions that we have from our attendees. One thing that I'd like to share, and if anyone else has any resources around this, there was a lot of C-suite buy-in, leadership buy-in listed as a barrier. So I know we've talked about, while there may not be direct funding for your company, there are a lot of organizations that are getting these grants and other sources of funding to be able to provide free resources. Construction Suicide Prevention Week is one of those. We don't gatekeep any of our resources. So go to the website on all of our backgrounds, download those Toolbox Talks. Those are free for you to use. We've also got speaker sourcing guides and other resources and tools for you to use there. And that so many of the resources that our panelists have mentioned. As far as C-suite buy-in, I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and I know there are other ones out there too, but the National Safety Council has provided this employer cost calculator for mental health that you can use. There is a bottom line argument to be made for supporting the mental well-being of your employees. There's lost productivity, staffing retention, all of those things that are such a big concern for the construction industry. If for no other reason, even if it is just the right thing to do, and that's not enough, if for no other reason, there is a bottom line reason for companies to be engaging in this. So you can use that to help get that buy-in from your leadership as well. So I'm not seeing any other questions come in through our chat or the Q&A. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to turn this back over to Jeff to close us out. But if there is anything that anyone can think of that we didn't address, go ahead and drop it in. We'll send any comments back to our panelists, any final questions back to our panelists to respond to in our follow-up that come in. Our panelists, if you are comfortable with people reaching out to you or contacting you, feel free to drop your your contact information into the chat. Just go ahead and send that out to everyone. I want to thank all of you for your time, your expertise on today's panel, for sharing your stories and advice with all of our attendees. We will make this available on our YouTube channel and on the website afterwards so that this can be shared more broadly as well. So again, thank everyone for your time. And Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Angela, panelists, and thank you everybody that joined us today. We will be sending a recording of today's presentation to all registered attendees, and please, we encourage you to share it with your colleagues. Please visit www.constructionsuicideprevention.com to find resources and to register for your participation. Have a great day.